Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late, but I hadn't the time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her. And that is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it? Yes. And I had read the rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really. So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point, you thought it was safe to try and lure the kitten back again. By dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator and into the adjoining cabin. Dark always loves this toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy. I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Kazuma wrote about in this diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. I just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... Meow! Thud! Okay, that wasn't dignifying. Thud. I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. And then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Kazuma was. From the appearance of the brown dark mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping onto the glass bell and tripping. The SS Bordia is a large vessel, but even she pitched and rolled violently without warning. If Mr. Asogi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitten got under his feet, the combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. But what became of the kitten afterwards? In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator. Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen. I must have forgotten to lock my case. And now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself at least. When I woke this morning, I heard that a young man in the cabin next to mine had died. But I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. Scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right, where is it? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it? And where did it come from? What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board a ship? Oh, I didn't say. Snake is my friend. His name is Piroshko. What? What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. I did not expect to find him here. Yes, how did that snake get into this cabin? But animals are not permitted on board. Ah, we are at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without close friend, without someone who understands? Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my deaf burly fellow. A gargantuan venomous snake, surely you can appreciate the danger of putting everyone in. No venom. Huh? Piroshko does not have venom. He is harmless, very long, but very gentle. He is adorable, like Granny. It's venomless? Yes. Now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile. And you feed him what? Milk, I suppose? Ah, like they say they milk chickens? Ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. They're really hammering that point in, aren't they? Piroshko eats mouse. Big, fat, round mouses. Ah, so... is that what the mousetrap in the passageway out there is for? Of course. How else can I catch my friend's favorite food? Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. It refuses to drink milk, it can't hear a whistle, it can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How deduced that something so inept land a starring role? It's not my fault. I do not make up stories. My Piroshko has nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. Miss Pavlova? I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize, but please remember this. A young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. But what are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events, an accident. I'm no great detective like Mr. Shlomes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. I just can't quite put my finger on it. I confess, I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issue on this matter. Oh? I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Ah! Not again! When did he do that? Especially as they're on your wrist as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port of call. You were Mr. Shlomes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yes. Kazuma was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom, even. In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. The truth about how you really died. About how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. What we should ponder first is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident, or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin by the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident. Hold it! Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin, it's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. Not that.
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The words written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language, Japanese in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language he could have picked up very fast. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry, what do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Soak could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death! Ah! Which means after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead. That's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So Susato has noticed it too then. Putting the message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident, in other words...
Yes!
This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. But that's the glass belt that the kitten had around its neck. We already know about all that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there is a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Ah! Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in that wastepaper basket. Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth. in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Kya! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Sogi's... Hold it! You are wasting time. Someone else was there. Da, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There was no way in or out. Oh, yes. And only the other person in cabin was... And only other person in cabin when young student died was you!
Yes!
Yes! It's true, I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside a cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. Not would have, there is no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Ha 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 ha! Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up a broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Sogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Yes, well, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light on the floor there. Little wonder that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you? Hold it! Seaman Stroganov? Nina is a woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. You do not accuse ship's angel of being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that is not possible. I gave my tooth. Well, this is almost interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective, you should know. Look through my eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin. Not Nina, not anyone. Or do you want to tell me the killer can walk through locked doors? Yet, it's impossible. He's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside. Red? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship, constructed of heavy steel with not a gap in sight. No threads or needles or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so Susato-san, how could you shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganov has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see traces of the method I have in mind having been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside. One way does spring to mind, yes. You really know what Mr. Shlooms means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right, it's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia acting on the objects. Is there nothing Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least? Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over these books on the bookcase also made something else in the cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. Ah! It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into the cabin not long before and we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello, is anybody there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosonaga. Oh yes! That's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of inertia, if you want to call it that. Are you trying to say that last night after Mr. Asogi was killed,